Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
I like your lights.
Oh, yeah, my Christmas lights are still up. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love lights.
I forgot they're there, but yep,
I,
you're.
I keep my lights on all year round. Happy New Year, by the way.
Oh, Happy New Year. Yeah, you know what? I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to take some of them down, but leave ones on the house.
Yeah.
And then what I do if I have a party or something, I turn my lights on.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? I keep them.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
fun.
lights. It's kind of fun and happy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for doing this. This is really special for
Oh,
me.
you're
And
welcome. Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
definitely.
Welcome, William, to Chat Off the Mat. I'm really excited that you're here with us today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's nice being here.
Yeah, great. First of all, I just want to say that I am a student of William, and I'm just very grateful that he's spent the time here with us today. So, the first question I have for you, William, is there has been a really big growth in awareness and more of an acceptance of Reiki. More people are becoming practitioners, and it's even now used in hospitals, surgical rooms. Everywhere you go, there's this growth spurt or this presence of Reiki. And I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel or how do you think this has become about?
Well, Reiki has been improving in popularity for ever since it got started. And so I recall, when I first started practicing and teaching, not too many people understood what it was. And then at some point, it became and actually people thought it was hokey, strange, unusual. And then a shift happened, and then people say, "Oh yeah, I know what Reiki is." It's something like, you need to know what Reiki is if you're going to be knowledgeable about what's going on. And so there was a shift that happened, and I think it was just that people's minds opened up to the possibility that there's more going on in the world than what they were thinking about. There's a spiritual aspect, and that healing also is plays an important role. And then also, I think that there were a lot of people that took classes and got results, and people were talking about it because of the fact that it works. And in addition to that, I think it's so easy to learn. So I work with a kahuna when it was in Hawaii. And if you wanted to learn to be a kahuna, it took years of practice and time. And you would be an apprentice for quite a long time, and eventually, start to get out on your own. But with Reiki, you take a weekend class and you can do Reiki. So I think that those are a few of the reasons I think it's become so popular.
I agree with you. I think that I've been practicing Reiki and I've known about Reiki for a very, very long time. When I first was introduced to it, it was so new. It was about 30 years ago, or maybe about a little less than that. And it's just been fantastic that this awareness of this growth has occurred. And I too believe that healing has a very big part on anything that these days that people want to or attracted to, because there's such a need for people to heal themselves. So yeah. Um, the next question I have is sometimes there are people who are skeptical about Reiki. They still think it's hokey or very woo. And there's a lot of more people becoming practitioners. And I remember when I first started becoming a practitioner, or I was a practitioner, it was very hard for me to explain what Reiki was because I didn't feel I had the right words or that people were very skeptical. So, um, how do you deal with that? How, or what advice do you have for practitioners out there who meet people who are a little bit skeptical?
Well, first of all, I think you need a really good explanation of Reiki, which is, we would call it the elevator explanation, which means you only have a couple of minutes to explain it. And so what I say is that Reiki is a Japanese technique for stress reduction and relaxation that also promotes healing. Then I stop and I look at the person and see how they're responding. And if they ask a question or want to know more, and then I talk about, well, Reiki can easily be learned in a weekend class. and it is something that you use your hands to do. It uses life energy, and life energy is something that most people are aware of, but that medicine doesn't really talk too much about. But when you're healthy, your life energy is strong, and it's easy for you to do any job that you might have to do, or even you have more fun like playing games or going exercising or anything. It's easy to do that when your life energy is strong. But when it's weak, then you feel kind of run down. You're tired. You can't think clearly, and that Reiki is just a method of increasing the amount of life energy that you have. And they go, "Oh wow!" And then they say, "Well, how do you do that anyway?" And so then, if I'm in person, then I'll put my hands on their shoulders and I'll continue to talk about Reiki, and they'll go, "Oh wow, this feels pretty good." And so the actual hands on the shoulders really does it. And they go, "Oh, oh, I'm relaxing already. Wow, this is good." So the intellectual and then the experiential, kind of combining that together.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding, right? I do the same
Yeah.
thing. I put my hands on people if I'm close by, they get to feel something, and it's a nice reaction when that happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a great that elevator pitch really is very helpful, actually.
Mhm.
Uh, Recently I took a class with you, and I think it's important that even practitioners that are already masters or practitioners take repeat classes with teachers. So I was able to take one of your classes recently.
Good.
And one of the things you said in the training was that Mikao Usui, who is the quote unquote founder of Reiki, wanted Reiki to evolve, that it was meant to evolve. And one of the way that Reiki has evolved with you, you're like a pioneer of Reiki in the world, is through holy fire. And the practice of placements and ignitions versus attunements, which was kind of the previous way people became practitioners. It still happens, but now it has evolved to a different layer or a different level. So this came to you during an intuitive guidance with, I know, one of your students and co-teachers, and your connection to a higher source. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about, how this evolving of Reiki came about with you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, I was very interested in metaphysical things, and in high school, I took a class. Um, well, it was in The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. So that was my first introduction to the mind and the fact that thinking could actually change our lives if we start thinking positive thoughts about ourselves. I used it; it worked. And then I became a Rosicrucian, and they had lessons that they would send in the mail. They were really interesting, and they had a lodge where I could go to meet people and interact with other people. And then they told me about concept therapy that was being taught in Canada. That's another style. I became a hypnotherapist, and concept therapy was using hypnosis. And so then again, I learned even more. And so then when I went to Hawaii, um, I joined a coven of witchcraft, and the person in charge was a hereditary witch, and so that means her parents had been witches, and her grandparents and all of her relatives way into the past were witches. But anyway, one of the members there knew astrology, and so he started showing me some things about it, and it's like right away I got it. I mean, it didn't. I didn't have to even take a class. I was started doing charts, and eventually I did, take a class, and then a few classes, read some books. But I was able to do it just intuitively, and then I created a special chart called the Transograph, and then I had a big poster of that on the wall of my apartment. And my roommate was doing a tarot card reading, and then the person he was reading for saw this chart, and she said, I have a friend that would be interested in that. So I gave her a copy. I had some rolled up. I gave her a copy. And a few days later, I was sitting in the apartment, and unconsciously, sometimes things happen, we're not very aware of it. And something was happening over here, but I wasn't paying too much attention, like a pressure. And then it moved to the front, and I go, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? And so then I made my mind very still, became an observer. I was just sitting there watching, and I watched the energy move over to this side.
To your left
And I
side.
thought, wow, that happened. And but what is it? I don't know. Well, then the woman called and said, "Oh, I gave this chart to my friend, and he's a kahuna." And I go, "Wow, okay." And she said, "And he wants to meet you." Now I heard something about the kahunas. I didn't know too much about it, but I went and talked with him, and he was quite interested in the astrology, and he asked me if I would do his chart, and if also he said with his students he could line me up with people to do astrology charts, with, and that's what I was wanting to do. And he said, and he wanted to know, would you like to do that? Work with him and do charts for his students, and inside I'm going, oh yes, yes, oh, but outside I go, yeah, I think I would give that a try. So anyway, so I worked with him, and then I got to learn all about what kahunas do, and because I was doing it for astrology for him. Plus, I took his classes, and I got the inside track, and I learned a lot more than what they normally share with the public. The same is true with most um, types of shamanism that are authentic, like going back into the past. There's a lot
Mhm.
more going on there. They don't share everything with their students. So anyway, I got the inside track on that, and also with the witchcraft, and then the astrology. And so, but the Kahuna said something really interesting. He said, all of these abilities that we're learning have no limit. You can just keep going. There's no limit to them. And you'll never get to a place where you're done. You can always go higher. I go, oh, wow, okay. And then he said also that he had studied with 9 other kahunas. And he said the way of huna is you're always a student. And he said there's always more to learn. And he said you can learn from anybody. And he said something interesting too. He said, if you're talking to someone and you want them to tell you something you don't know, inwardly you say a little prayer asking that they would say something that would be important for you to know. And then in the course of the conversation, the person will start talking about something that would be very useful to you. So that was quite interesting too. But that was a very humble way of being that the Kahuna said he could learn from anybody, and that he had studied with 9 other Kahunas. So when I became a Reiki master, then I thought about that, and I decided I would like to do that sort of thing. And so I did study with a number of Reiki masters. At that time, they said, well, once you're a Reiki master, you're supposed to stay with your master the rest of your life. And the master I got initiated with didn't know too much extra additional information. I thought, well, I'm going to follow the kahuna. And so I studied with lots of other teachers, learned a little bit extra from each one, and different variations and techniques and all that. And then also the kahuna said another thing that was very interesting. He said, what you need to do is find a clairvoyant healer to work with you and to help you heal, because they can see areas of your aura that need to be healed that you're not aware of. And they can help you heal more deeply than you could do by yourself. So again, another level of humility. So I followed that path, and he helped me on that at the beginning. And then as I moved on, I always would find somebody that was clairvoyant, but I would say a prayer too, asking to find someone that was just right for me. And so because of that, I did find people that were very much tuned in to me and my path. And the style that they usually followed was they didn't really just pull things out of the air. They tuned into me and then went up on my spiritual path to find things that were beyond my awareness and then let me know about them. So that was very, very, very beneficial.
Yeah.
And so then the one person, Janice Jones, I was working with, first worked with the archangels, and then her path improved too, and she began working with a guru named Sai Baba in India,
Mm-hmm.
and then also with Jesus, but only as a spiritual master, not as a religious figure at all. And so then that's when I started to learn more about, improving the quality of my Reiki.
Mm.
And then eventually Jesus came to me through her and told me about this new energy, and that I would have to allow some of the symbols and energies I was working with to move out of the way. So I said, okay. And then he moved it back. And then I got this new energy. And he said, and you're going to be teaching this tomorrow in your new class. And he said, you won't do the attunements the same way. You just talk for a short time and stop talking. And then he said he would come in and do the attunements on each person directly. So, that worked out. I tried that. It was amazing. And in fact, there were students sitting in a row outside. And I did that, and I wondered what's going to happen. So I got up, I went inside, and when then I heard the students come back into the room. I came out into the classroom, and I asked who would like to share about your experience. And this one woman said she would, and she said she didn't know if anything was going to happen with this because it was so different. And she said a prayer asking that there would be a physical manifestation to demonstrate that something actually happened. And she said, after I got up and went in the house, a whirlwind came around my chair, like a very small tornado, and a chair shot straight up in the air and was blown like 50 yards away.
Wow.
That was her sign. And also, the other students said they were just sitting there going, like they couldn't believe what was just happened. And then they too said that the quality of the energy they got was much more powerful and yet more refined, and they were quite pleased, and still though in a somewhat altered state. So that's how it came in. And then what happened then is I found that I was being accepted into this school, like a spiritual path, where I would be upgraded and taught. And then at some point, then there would be a serious improvement in the energy. And so now when this first came, they had it formulated just for me, where I would be the one that was this amazing person with all these skills and abilities. And I asked, well, can we do this in a way that I can share it with others? And they said, yes, but it will take longer to do that. It would be very quick just for me, but if I'm going to be able to then share it, there are different frequencies that would have to be, developed in me so I could share it. So it did take longer. And so that's how Holy Fire developed. And then the upgrades kept coming and so forth. So I worked with Janice Jones, and then she passed away, unfortunately. But then Colleen Bonelli had taken classes with her and also was a shaman, and she developed the same method of doing readings and sessions, and so I continue with her. So I guess that would be one of my powerful secrets, I suppose, is I have a outside person I trust, and they help me heal instead of me just doing it on my own.
Yeah, I think I've heard your story before, and I'm really glad that you shared that with us today. And, I was thinking one of the things I was thinking is now that they're not attunements where the practitioner or the master teacher would be placing their hands on you or doing some physical process, now that the ego is basically taken out of the process, right? And it's just the energy that is upgrading, I'll use that term, each of the people that are becoming either Reiki 1 practitioners, 2, or masters or teachers, and it's going to them and being placed there uniquely for them, right? So it's not like so that I think that's fantastic. And it is a longer process for this to occur. In some cases, or there are different ignitions, you call them, to become a holy fire practitioner, but they all work in sequence, in proper order, in order for that energy to develop within or be placed within each person. Did I say that correct?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, and also one of the things I read, and I don't remember where I saw this quote, it could have been yours. I think it was in one of your books, maybe one of the manuals, is that, you know, people that become master teachers, which is one of the levels, it's not like that's a goal, it's a process when you become a master of anything, and it's never really over. You were saying before that one of the kahunas, you know, it's always evolving. There's always new teachings. You're always learning. If you're not learning anymore, you're not growing, you're not raising your vibration and doing the work, you know, you're basically non-existent. So there's always new things to learn. Not everyone knows everything. And it's nice to see that someone like yourself who's been on this path for so long, and you've done so many things, including past life regression, which I have, you know, which I find that fascinating. You're still evolving and you're still growing and you're sharing that knowledge and what you're learning with others, you know, and this is just, it just grows and grows and grows. And that's how, one of the reasons why Reiki has evolved here in the world, because of what you have contributed. So very grateful for that. Yeah. So while I'm on that question, I'm going to segue into the next, or on that comment. What is your vision for where you want to see Reiki in the future? Or where do you feel Reiki how it will expand in the future?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, because I don't do anything. You know, it's all channeled, but I don't think it's channeled in the usual sense. It just is done for me. Now, that is absolutely the greatest thing. One time I had a session with my clairvoyant person. This was on Maui, and I come out into the main room, and I'm sitting there, and I see an image of Jesus, and he's looking up, and it just comes into my mind, almost like it's placed in my mind, and I look at that and I go, what's he looking at? And as soon as I asked the question, he wanted me to ask that question, what's he looking at? So then energy appeared. I could feel it, right? A large, big energy appeared on the left side of my body, and I go, well, what are you? And it says, and they put it right into my mind very clearly. They said, we are the brothers and sisters of the light. I go, whoa. So then in my next sessions, I began exploring, who are the brothers and sisters of the light? What do they do? Why are they here? And all that. And so then they're actually the founders of all the world's religions and spiritual paths. And it's something I didn't really understand, but they're also called the ascended masters. But they like to call themselves the brothers and sisters of the light, for me, because it's both men and women. And so they took over and helped to channel the holy fire for me, although they emphasize it's not their energy. It's the path is to not ever use your energy, even if you're enlightened, is to let it flow through from a higher power. So then they've been there guiding everything, and they have I come to understand they have a plan, going into the future, and that works with each individual and takes them through different stages of development. Then they're ready for a big step, and that happens. And then they get settled into the new energy, and they work with them to continue to take people up ever higher. And there's no, like you say, there's no there.
Right.
So you never get to a place where you're done. You say, okay, I did it. I'm enlightened now. You can ask me questions if you want. It's okay. But
Right.
I no longer need to grow because I'm already there.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know. It doesn't happen like that for us. And so there was a book I read too that was quite interesting that said something about that. And there was a guru in India who was enlightened. And somebody came to him and said, "Oh, sir, you are enlightened now, so you must be done with your spiritual path. You've gotten there now. You're there. You're enlightened. You must be, quite happy, relaxed, and so forth." And the guru said, "Well, actually, not really. Enlightenment is the beginning of the spiritual path. So, yeah, so that was, I mean, I read that and I thought, what?
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 Well, right. I
Yeah,
love that though. Yeah.
yeah, you said you're not even on the path till you're enlightened. So then that's when you begin to be on the path. The book was Spiritual Gems, which I have right here. Here it is.
Oh,
Oh, somebody
nice.
gave me this book a long, long time ago, Spiritual Gems, and
Yeah,
his name,
I'll put it in the show notes as well. I don't know. I
yeah.
can't see the name there, but
Well, the last name is Singii. G. G is like an honorary title,
yes, yeah.
but it's let's see, Her Huzur Maharaja Swan Singh Ji.
Okay.
And so it's an old book, as you can see.
Yeah.
And but Amazon has a new edition. It's the same book, of course. But yeah. So what happened is that with this guru, his students would write him letters asking questions, and then he would write back with the answers. And they took all those letters that came in, and then what he wrote back, and put them in the book.
Hmm.
So it's just filled with questions and answers in here, and he answers most of the questions a person would have. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But I got that idea. Oh wow, I see.
Yeah.
And the Kahuna too said you keep going. There's no end to it. So that helped me to shift over to that idea, and that also yeah, allows the ego to go into the background because nobody's ever there,
Hmm.
and only the ego wants to be there. So, well, I call it the false ego because we've discovered that the ego does have a purpose and it can be healed. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about that process
Mm.
and how it
Yeah.
developed.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I also feel that the ego has a purpose. I feel that the ego has gotten kind of a bad rap, you know, and things are changing, or the way we view the ego has changed. And really the ego can shed, I feel, can almost shed light on parts of yourself that need healing or that you need to work on. Right. So doing that shadow work that comes up, that's kind of like the ego telling you, you need to focus on healing or working on this aspect of yourself towards that enlightenment or towards
Yeah.
your path, on your path.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and speaking of healing, one of the questions I have is, do you feel that most people become Reiki practitioners to heal parts of themselves first? Like, why do you think
Yeah,
people
I
become
think so.
practitioners? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. But also it's so nice that you can actually help other people
Yeah.
too. And then also it can be a business. So there's different levels of it that are very enticing, and altogether it's just a beautiful path. And yeah, I believe that's true that people want to heal, and they have tried different things, and then you find out, oh, I can heal myself with Reiki. Wow, oh boy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and anytime anything goes wrong or you get upset or whatever, you can just sit there and do Reiki and stuff. Oh,
I
there
know.
we
It's
go.
it's 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 the best. I do it first thing before I even get out of bed.
Yeah,
I invite Reiki into myself and my day. And I know for me personally, I became a Reiki practitioner to help my sons who were going through some health issues, and also myself eventually, because I had health issues as well. Um, but I'm finding that when I do Reiki on people who are not practitioners, they really are curious about how Reiki can continue to help themselves. And
yeah,
I always encourage them, you can become a Reiki practitioner and you can help yourself and help your family. And
yeah,
and so, yeah, that's part of what my intention as a Reiki master teacher is, to encourage others to become their own healers.
sure,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, good.
Um, So I want to touch base a little bit on, you mentioned in the training and also in the past that I've known you, that you did past life regression on others. And past life regression can uncover a person's karma or old wounds that they're currently dealing with. And how do you feel Reiki can help heal the course of that karma or current wounds or situations that people are experiencing because of that, like an ancestral healing or past life healing?
Well, Reiki can heal on all levels, including ancestral healing, healing karma, healing past lives, all of that. And Reiki is life energy, which I was mentioning before, life energy itself. But it's interesting about ki or life energy is it can be influenced and guided by our own mind. And so also ki by itself can be healthy or unhealthy. So with ki, you can have byo-ki, which is unhealthy ki, and gen-ki, which is healthy ki. So, and then we also have Reiki, which is another type of ki. So actually in the study of ki, you'll find that there's so many different kinds of ki. I've got a book here too on that. Let's see.
You're like a library over there.
Yeah, I got out some books. So here it is. Yeah, A Brief History of Ki or
Yeah.
Qi. This is I think the Chinese
Yes, chi.
version. Yeah, Qi. So a brief history. And so quite interesting about it. But it's been around for a long, long time, and it was came from China, and possibly even before that. So in looking, I was doing some research on the development of humanity or the Homo sapien species, which we are, and it actually evolved around 300,000 years ago in Africa, and then they were there for a while, and then eventually they started to travel, migrate, and then they went out to Europe and Asia, and so the Chinese have always known about life energy and healing. And at first, they quite a bit used it in the martial arts. And but even in the martial arts, there was actually a meditation that you would do, and also healing. So martial arts has a certain amount of focus on healing and meditation. And then also there was a faction of that group that decided they wanted to go into the spiritual only, and then temples were created and through for the development of higher levels of ki, and or qi as they would call it in China, and then they discovered something called ling qi, which is a higher qi. So a human being can create certain levels of qi or ki within themselves, but Einstein said something very interesting. He said, in order to solve a problem, you have to think on a higher level than what you were thinking on to create the problem. So, as an example, getting a knot in your shoelaces, that didn't take hardly any thinking at all. But then to undo it, you got to really focus and take some time to undo that knot. So that's like an example of taking more time and using higher consciousness to solve a problem. But Reiki works in that way. So Reiki is not ordinary ki or chi, but it's a higher level that is imbued with spiritual wisdom. So the ki is being guided by spiritual wisdom. So there's the intelligence of it and also the energy. So the energy then guides Reiki to heal. So they developed this Ling Chi, which is a higher level, and that was in China a long time ago, like 1600 BC or so. And then that migrated over to Korea and eventually to Japan. So Japan got it around 400 AD. But at that time, there's a question about whether they had attunements to go with it or not. It's possible that they did, but we don't know for sure. But then, that's the kanji characters, and so the kanji was there. Now, let me show you the kanji. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but in Japan, they use what's called kanji was the ancient writing style. And are the kanji characters for Reiki. So we have Rei and Ki, Reiki. Now, a very interesting story about where the idea of Ki came from. So, of course, they ate rice in China, and they had a pot, in a lid, and the rice was in there with water, and it starts to boil, and the lid pushes up, and a little spurt of steam comes out, and they saw that, and they thought, oh, the essence of the rice is in the steam, and that's where they started to develop the idea of chi, this invisible force that's all around us. So when we see this character, this is actually the symbol for rice, and this symbolizes a pot with a lid. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
where ki or chi came from, the idea, concept.
Right.
So this is the came from the pot of boiling rice. So and then this character Ray is has to do with higher wisdom or consciousness.
Hmm.
So these middle rounded characters here are the healer or shaman, and they're mind, body, and spirit of the shaman.
Hmm.
And see the little lines going up. That's like the shaman reaching up like this.
Right.
And above, these are like clouds, but they really represent higher consciousness, higher wisdom. And these lines are the levels of like a rock in the earth, like deep down, this very solid earth.
Wow.
So the idea is the shaman reaches up and brings higher consciousness down to earth. And so this would have to do with the ray aspect. That's ray and then ki. So it's life energy being guided by higher consciousness. So anyway, and that started in China a long time ago, and possibly goes all the way back to the origin of humanity. And who knows? Now, before that, were Neanderthals. So who knows? Because they were actually quite smart. They weren't dumb. And so most likely they probably had healing methods too that the Homo sapiens picked up from the Neanderthals. So healing probably goes way back for hundreds of thousands of years, even millions. So
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know I practice Qigong, and I'm a Qigong teacher, and we learn about that symbol actually with the rice and the steam, and that represents the life force energy, and Gong means skill or work, and it's a way of working with our energy, right?
Yeah.
And everything is energy. So, and like you said at the beginning, energy represents personally how we feel. We can be sluggish, we can be really happy, and it all depends on how we're feeling. So everything is really about energy. And what's funny is I hear the word all the time now. Even when I'm watching basketball with my kids, they talk about the energy around a certain 3-point shot, or the energy of the audience. So it's constantly being used. So I guess it's a good thing because,
transitioning into the higher awareness of things.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's great. It's fabulous. Yeah. So I know that Reiki, back to we were talking about past life regression, that Reiki or Chi has been around a long time, but Reiki also, there's a way that we can heal our past through symbols that we use in environments. So the Hansha Shonen symbol is a way that we can heal past things in our lives, whether they're past life or even past when we were younger, like trauma. There's a lot of awareness around trauma, childhood trauma. So Reiki helps to heal with that. It's not just what's happening right now in my body, mind, or spirit, but we can also send Reiki out into the future and heal, or I'm not going to say heal the future, but just send it out for the intention that whatever we want it to be, it works out in a certain way. So that there's a lot of just powerful ways to use to the Reiki energy. Okay, so we talk a lot about the intuitive guidance that you've used or you've received from others, and one of the things you talk about in our training is to develop when a person is teaching Reiki or doing Reiki on a person, they can tap into their own intuitive guidance, right? So that's also an important aspect, that we are aware of what's happening when we're practicing, or even in our day-to-day life, to tune into that inner guidance. Is that something that you do as well? Like, you seem to be aware of visions or messages and in guidance. Can you talk a little bit more about how people can tap into their own inner guidance?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a good topic. I think everybody has some level of intuition, inner awareness. Now, the problem is, though, that in society, we're not, you go to school, we're not taught about that at all. We're taught about how to use our logical mind to figure things out, solve problems. We learn math and physics and chemistry and, business school and all that. And it's all about your mind. Um, and they don't focus too much on your intuition. And so it's always been there, though it's in the background. And so it's a matter then of
Mm.
being willing to trust and try out this new way. And if you have an inkling about something that you think was a way to do something better, and you try it and it works, that means you were using your intuition. And so intuition is really the creative force that's in everyone. And all of the inventors and scientists and all those people have all used their intuition. And they have different words for it and different methods that they use. But yeah, the intuition is extremely important.
Yeah, and you're right. That's a great point. A lot of scientists, people who have developed things that, are beyond their own capacity, they all tapped into something. Something came to them,
Hmm.
right? And they were able to act on it because they went with that. And I feel when you get an inclination or a sense of something from a higher source or intuitive guidance, to go with it. Sometimes if you don't go with it, it creates some kind of consequence, or things don't
Hmm.
flow as easily. So
Yeah.
tapping into that, and I do feel everyone has it. Just being aware of it, and everyone can
Hmm.
develop it. And I think more and more people are tuning into that guidance, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about something that you've developed, and it's called the World Peace Grid. And
Yes.
yeah, it's very special. And in a time when peace has always been, kind of like a goal, and like we all want to have a peaceful society, and everyone just be good towards each other. But you created this World Peace Grid, and you've placed it in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Can
Let
you
me turn
talk?
my camera a little bit. Yeah. There we
Yeah,
go.
you have one beautiful one right there in your
Yeah.
home in Michigan, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk about how that concept developed, and where these grids are, and how they work?
Yeah. This is a real world peace grid,
Yeah.
and the wall there. And so, well, what happened there is that I became a Reiki master, was teaching, and then I heard I was interested in having some artwork done, and I heard about this man Alex Gray, who was an artist, and he had done some very interesting types of artwork. And then I found out that he had gone to the North Pole to meditate, and I thought, oh wow, oh, hey, wow, that's something. And so then I actually talked with him and actually started working with him, and he did some painting for me. And actually, this is one of his paintings in the background
I
there.
see. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
the Temple of the Great Beaming Light. So
Mm.
we collaborated together. This was when he wasn't so famous, and he actually would work with me. Now he only does his own work, but then he was very open to finding out specifically what I wanted and then making what I wanted. So we did our drawings back and forth and everything, and tuned right into it. And then he produced the work of art, and then I have the original here, and we've made posters. We have posters of it and all that. And so he signed it, and he gave me the actual rights to make copies and sell it and everything. So, and then he went on to become like super famous, and they actually have a museum of all of his artwork now. You can go
Wow.
and see all the things he's done. And anyway, that's where the Peace Grid came from. But he inspired me about going to the North Pole, and so I said, "Oh, I want to do that too." And so then I didn't know how, but I was reading National Geographic, and there was a story about a group that was going to the North Pole by dog sled, and the guy's name was there. And so I looked it up, and lo and behold, I got the phone number. I call. I got his wife, and she said, "Oh, he's in the garage working on a dog sled. I'll let you. You can talk to him." And I said, "Hey, can I go with you guys?" He goes, "Oh yeah, sure."
Wow.
And I go, "What?" He just said yes. So then he said, "But there's a group. Call this phone number because there's an actual group you can sign up, and they like take you go to the North Pole. They take you to the North Pole."
Wow.
And so it wasn't actually right with him. So I did that, and they sent information over to get how to be prepared. It was on a certain day and everything. And then I was actually in England. I flew back and to New York, and then to Yellowknife in Canada, and then up to Resolute, which is a town. It's the furthest most small village where they have a landing strip where airplanes can actually land.
Mm.
And we went up there, and their landing strip is made of gravel because there's permafrost that melts and freezes, and a concrete or asphalt runway would all crack up, so it's like gravel. And then we flew up there, and the plane actually had retractable skis in case it had to
Oh,
land
cool.
on snow. And we went up there, and we had to wait though for the right moment because everything's by according to the weather. So we stayed in this Quonset hut, a great big building that's kind of a semicircle sheet
Like an
metal
igloo?
building. Well, not exact. No, it wasn't an igloo. No, it's hard.
Just kidding.
Just yeah. So anyway, so we waited until finally said, "Okay, let's go." So we got in the plane and took off and flying up there, and it just was fantastic. And
Wow.
I had read these adventure novels when I was a boy, and it was just felt like that. And we were in the plane, and they had to take seats out and put 55-gallon drums of extra fuel. And they said, "Oh, by the way, this plane just barely has the capability to get where we're going, so we have to carry extra fuel." So I go, "Oh, that's reassuring. Okay." So anyway, but then we're flying, and you just hear the sound of the plane, and you look out the window, and it's all snow and ice as far as you can
Wow.
see, going up and down hills and mountains, and there's no villages, no streets or roads anywhere, and it's just wah, going like that, and going up north, and wow, that was amazing. And then let's see, what did we do? We landed to refuel, and then they said, "Well, the weather's changed. We'll have to stay here a while." So we stayed there, and then there were guys that lived there. It was a weather station, um, and so they didn't have a lot to do. Say, "Hey, we're going out to check the iceberg." So you want to go? So there are these fjords that's water, but in the winter, or even in like when we were there in May, it was frozen, and there was an iceberg frozen in there. So we went on a half track out to the iceberg, and then we chipped some of the ice off, and it was like so interesting. There's no bubbles in or anything, and came back, and then finally it was time to go, and we took off, and we're flying for the North Pole, and we were over land, which is different. And then we got over ice. It's frozen ice, and we're called leads, which are cracks in the ice going way off. And we're just flying along, and we got to a place called Tanqueray, which is this very remote kind of station, and we landed there, and they had some buildings. We went inside for a little while, and there were dog sled dogs there, penned up, like chained up. And interestingly, there was a female, and they chained her off far away, and all the dogs are like trying to get to the female and barking and everything. And that was funny. But then we took off again, and flew out. And what happened was the dog sled team, actually the same one I talked to on the phone, didn't make it to the North Pole. And so we were going to land and pick them up and then take them up with us to the North Pole. So we landed, we got the dog sleds and the dogs on the plane and took off again. And we went up. But when we got to the North Pole, it was too foggy, and we couldn't land. So then, but I've got the peace grid with me, and this guy says, "Can't you just like fling it from the window?"
Like a frisbee?
Go, no, this is sacred. I can't just fling it like a frisbee from the window. It's going to crash down there or something. And And so we went back, but I was trusting. I was trusting
Right.
something would happen. So we go back to Resolute and land there. And then I talked to the dispatcher. She says, "Don't worry, I'll get you on another plane. There are other planes going up there, and I'll get you on another plane." So I just hung out there for a week or something. And then they got me on another plane, and the guy was walking to the geographic North Pole, which is different than no, she was walking to the magnetic North Pole.
Ah.
And where I was going to go was the geographic. So the magnetic is where all the lines of magnetic force are going down through the Earth. And she says, "Would the magnetic pole be okay?" And I go, "Yeah."
Yeah. Oh my
She
goodness.
said, "So then," I go, "Now I see what happened. I'm supposed to," because that, so anyway, so I went up there at the magnetic pole, and the people I went with, they went off to talk to their friend, and I had lots of time go off by myself. And I had it all worked out that up there, the ice is only 6 or 10 feet deep, thick.
Right.
And late summer, it all melts, and everything you leave, though, it will fall down to the bottom of the ocean. So I created a float system with a big block of balsa wood,
Ah,
and that's a very light type of wood, and then some heavy, not exactly rope, but heavy string going around it. And so I went off and I had a trowel too. I dug it down into the snow and I put it there and I did Reiki on it, and then I buried it, left it there with everything all set up so it would gently float down to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean, which is
mm,
14,000 feet deep.
wow.
So yeah, so I did that,
Wow.
and I thought flying back, go, "Oh man, oh, I'm done. Oh, I did it. That's fantastic. It's great." Oh, I just felt really good and complete and everything. But
Yeah.
then in the back of my mind, it said, "It's not balanced." So it was my mind was saying, "Well, you got to have one at the South Pole too." So that led me to go to the South Pole. I put one in Jerusalem also. There's one here. There's one at the center on Maui, and there's one actually on Mount Kurama on in Japan, where Usui discovered Reiki. So in fact, that one is special because we met the monks at the temple, and they were really interested in it. And I had an interview with the head monk. He was in charge of the whole thing. And he was very honored that we would leave this with him. And so I, had an interpreter and everything. And then we left it there. So now it is in their holy place. There's like a main temple on Mount Brahma. It's in their holy place. And we did take some pictures, and then they put it into the sacred area where only the monks go to meditate. So it's up there on Mount Brahma.
Wow, that's fantastic. Wow, it's amazing how everything worked out synchronistically for you on that trip. And it was
Yeah,
meant to go where it was meant to go. And I find that I've heard this story a few times, and every time I learn something new. But every time I just say to myself, dang, William just does what he's meant to do. You get the message or you get that feeling and you do it and it works out because it's meant to be.
yeah, yeah. I'm
It-
being guided, and the energy backing me up, and
yeah.
yeah, it has worked out really well. I'm
And,
very happy with all the
and
things.
it's the power of Reiki, and
Yeah,
these are examples of how Reiki works. And I
yeah,
know that I believe you have regular ceremonies of the world peace activation, or where you
yeah.
gather all the Reiki. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that works?
Well, once a month we do a meditation where we send Reiki to all the peace grids. And people have cards. This is all over the world, and it's at 7 p.m. on the middle Wednesday of each month. And we have a list of the actual dates on our website.
Yep, I want to
Go
share
to
that.
the Peace Grid, and they're there. And then everybody gets together on the middle Wednesday, and they send Reiki to all the peace grids.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And I know that I'm going to put all this in the show notes. So even if you're not a Reiki practitioner yet, you can check everything out and have a look and see what it looks like and learn more about the Peace Grid. So thank you for that. So I'm going to wrap this up by asking you about your school. We haven't talked about it.
okay.
The International Center for Reiki Training has been around a very long time. You're the president and founder of it. It's kind of I've been a member for many, many, many years. When I teach, I use the manuals that you wrote I wouldn't use anything else because they're just very comprehensive and wonderful. Can you just talk about, things that you offer or anything else you want to talk about regarding the school?
Yeah, well, we provide things for people that will help them practice Reiki, and we want the best for everybody. We want everyone to do well. We want everyone to be guided by Reiki for their life and for their Reiki practice. And so like you said, we have the manuals available. We have class outlines on how to teach, and we offer classes also. And so I've trained. Well, in our system, we've got what we call our licensed teachers, but we also have a membership association, and the first level is called affiliate, and that's for anyone who has Reiki, is a Reiki master from any lineage. It doesn't have to be our lineage, but you have decided that you want to use our manuals in our outlines, and that's affiliate. And then the next level is professional, and the professional level is for people who took their training from one of our licensed teachers for level 1 and master. And then there are other requirements around that too. They're listed on our website. But then they become a professional member. And then, like I was saying, there's the licensed teacher that is more thorough and takes a longer period of time. So to be a licensed teacher, it takes about 3 years to complete the program. And so you need to take all your classes from one of our licensed teachers. You need to review them, all the classes, and then you need to co-teach each of the classes with your mentor, which is a senior licensed teacher. And then there's a paper for you to write, a test to take, and there are other things too, a
lot of requirements, right? Different requirements, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all listed on our website.
Yeah.
And so then your first license to teach 1 and 2. So it doesn't take 3 years for you to get going. So you can get licensed for 1 and 2 usually in about a year. Some people do it faster, but so then you can start teaching 1 and 2, and then you get to use our special certificates for your students, and then you get to become after that the Reiki Master, and eventually Karuna Reiki Master.
Right.
And it takes about 3 years to do the whole program. But then what you get to do is advertise your classes in our magazine and on our website. And what people find is that although you're required to be a teacher for at least a year prior to applying to the program, and what people find is that you at least double the number of students in your classes once you become licensed. So there's a financial thing too. It does cost $500 a month to be in the program.
Right.
And the reason we're charging money, we didn't charge money when we first started. And I hear, someone's in the program. I haven't heard from a long time. I say, are you still in the program? Oh, yeah, I'm in the program. Oh, yeah. And but they weren't doing anything. They weren't going anywhere with it. But then when we started charging money, everybody's working through the program as fast as they can, because when you're done, you stop paying the $500 a month.
Right,
so
right. It's an investment. They're investing, right? They're investing. Yeah. And
it's inspiring. Then we had a source of income for our licensed teacher program. So that was valuable. And so that's the essence of the program.
Yeah. It's a serious program. And I know once you go through the program, you're a licensed Reiki Master teacher with different resources. But I know overall, even if you're not on that path, as a Reiki practitioner, level 1 or 2, to be a member of this organization, and as I was and have been for many years, there are many benefits and many resources. And you also have a conference every year that you participate in Sedona.
Yeah, that's
right? The retreat.
Weekend.
Yeah. So I encourage people. I'm going to put the link in the show notes to take a look at the website and check out all the training. I know William still does a lot of training himself, which is fantastic. So yeah, thank you for that. This has been fantastic. And is there anything else you wanted to share that I didn't ask, or I just don't want to leave that out? I think we covered a lot. Yeah, we covered a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
one thing is that we don't promote our, hard sell our program, and we feel that people would be guided. We only want people who feel spiritually guided to enter the program, and so we say it's not for everyone.
right.
And it's just for people who feel guided. Maybe there's some other path that's better for you. We don't want to divert you from that. So we
Yeah.
just say, if you're wondering about it, say prayers, meditate, and then if you feel guided, then you can go ahead and get into the program.
Yeah, that's how I approach Reiki. Also, people come get a session and they're like, well, when should I come back? Whenever you feel guided.
Yeah.
It's because Reiki
Uh-huh.
will guide you. Reiki's present, and
Yeah.
when you make Reiki a part of your life, it's really truly life changing, as we've seen with your life, and I
Oh,
know personal experience as well. So I want to thank you, William, for being here on Chat Off the Mat with us, and it's been a great experience for me, and just having you as a teacher in my life has been life changing, and Reiki and your organization. So thank you so much.
oh, you're welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
inviting me.
Thank you.
Yeah.